Uganda's legal history is marked by a series of powerful and controversial laws. While many were supported by the National Resistance Movement government to bring order, stability or reform, they often sparked intense debate revealing deep tensions between tradition, politics and human rights. The Land Act of 1998 aimed to organize land ownership and resolve long-standing disputes, but instead of unity, it ignited conflict. Traditional leaders in Buganda, led by Mengo, argued the law weakened their authority, transferring control from cultural institutions to government land boards. At the same time, tenants remained vulnerable. Many feared eviction by powerful landlords who exploited legal loopholes or used private force. The result: a law meant to protect land rights became a symbol of mistrust and unresolved tension. Tenants often remained in fear of forceful evictions by wealthy landlords who exploited legal loopholes or used private security to bypass the law. In 2005, Uganda reached a political turning point. The Constitutional Amendment Act removed presidential term limits, changing the country's democratic trajectory. Critics claim the move was designed to allow President Yoweri Museveni to extend his rule indefinitely. Allegations emerged that members of parliament received financial incentives of 5 million shillings each to support the amendment. The fallout was immediate. Political divisions deepened, and dissent within the ruling party was met with dismissals and sidelining. In 2013, a new law reshaped public expression. The Public Order Management Act gave police broad powers to regulate public gatherings. Government officials described it as necessary for maintaining order, but critics saw something else: a tool to suppress opposition and limit freedom of assembly. Although part of the law was struck down in 2020, its legacy remains controversial.
Chris Wariomunsi spent 5 days in detention during the Christmas recess. His supporters welcomed him in Kanungu, even shot at. And that reminded me the story of Grace Ibingira, who sponsored the detention without trial act and became a victim. I actually want a worse public order management bill.
By 2017, another constitutional battle emerged. Uganda passed the age limit bill, removing the 70-year cap for presidential candidates. This allowed Yoweri Museveni, then 73, to remain eligible for future elections. Critics called it a personalized law meant to extend his rule. Parliament turned chaotic as security forces stormed the chamber and forcibly removed opposition members of parliament. The legislative process was marked by unprecedented chaos within the August House. In September 2017, plainclothes security personnel, reportedly from the Special Forces Command (SFC), raided the parliamentary chambers to forcibly evict opposition MPs who were filibustering the bill. Several lawmakers were injured, including Betty Namboze, whose back was reportedly broken during the scuffle. Despite the violence, the amendment passed, leaving a lasting mark on Uganda's politics. In 2023, Uganda passed one of the world's most controversial laws against the LGBTQ+ individuals. The Antihomosexuality Act introduced severe penalties, including the death penalty for aggravated homosexuality. While many Ugandans supported it as a defense of cultural values, the international response was swift. The World Bank halted new loans. The United States imposed sanctions. Aid was redirected. The law triggered a global debate on human rights, sovereignty, and cultural identity.
In favor, sign the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Coffee, Uganda's economic lifeline, became the center of another storm in 2024. The government dissolved the Uganda Coffee Development Authority and transferred its role to a government ministry. The National Coffee Amendment Act of 2024 debate was so intense that it led to literal fistfights on the floor of parliament and accusations of tribalism. The UCDA had operated independently for over 30 years and was credited with making Uganda Africa's second-largest coffee exporter. Farmers and opposition leaders argued that moving coffee oversight to a bloated government ministry would destroy this sector. Leaders in the Buganda Kingdom and the Buganda Parliamentary Caucus viewed the dissolution of UCDA as a targeted punishment or a victory against the Baganda people who produce nearly 50% of the country's coffee. During the debate, Speaker Anita Among was accused of making discriminatory remarks against the Baganda. She denied these claims, but the fallout added a layer of ethnic tension to an already heated economic debate. The day the bill was passed on November 6, 2024, saw scenes of unprecedented violence in Parliament, with Mityana Municipality Member of Parliament Francis Zake hospitalized after a physical fight with another Member of Parliament during the session. In fact, 12 opposition members of Parliament were suspended for inciting violence, and the opposition eventually walked out in protest. The media, on the other hand, was blocked from covering the final proceedings as the lights in the chamber were turned off during a security intervention.
Can you sit? Can you sit? Can you sit? Can you sit? Honorable members.
In 2025, a new law reignited legal controversy. In 2025, Uganda passed a controversial amendment to the UPDF Act. The law allows military courts to try civilians, a move critics strongly oppose. This came just months after a landmark January 31, 2025 Supreme Court ruling of Attorney General versus Honorable Michael Kabaziguruka that declared the trial of civilians in military courts unconstitutional. Legal experts and opposition leaders argued that by reinserting provisions for the military trial of civilians, Parliament was in contempt of court and flouting Article 92 of the Constitution, which bars the legislature from overturning specific court decisions. But Yoweri Museveni defended the law, saying it was necessary for national security. Other laws have also raised concern. The NGO Act of 2016 tightened control over civil society, raising fears about shrinking civic space. The Computer Misuse Amendment Act of 2022 criminalized certain online speech, prompting criticism over freedom of expression. However, the Uganda Constitutional Court nullified the Computer Misuse Amendment Act 2022 in its entirety, declaring it null and void in March 2026. The court found that Parliament violated constitutional procedures, specifically failing to ensure a proper quorum during the Act's passage, rendering it illegal. Each of these laws tells a story not just about governance, but about power, resistance, and identity. In Uganda, the law is more than legislation. It is a battleground where the future of the nation is constantly being shaped, and the debate is far from over. Joram Paul Sonko, NTV Tonight.